You ever get the feeling that your conversations are following a script you never got a copy of? That you're stuck in these weird patterns you just can't seem to break? Well, you're not crazy. A psychiatrist named Eric Berne believed that's often exactly what's happening. So let's dive into his incredible theory, transactional analysis, and pull back the curtain on the hidden games we're all playing in our relationships.
To really get what he was talking about, let's start with a scenario that might be, well, a little too real. Picture this. A friend is complaining to you about a problem, and it's not the first time. You want to help, right? So you offer up what feels like a totally solid piece of advice. You say something totally logical, like, hey, why don't you just talk to your boss about it? Seems simple enough. But then you get a response that just slams the brakes on the whole conversation. Yes, but he wouldn't listen. So you try again. Okay, well, how about looking for a new job? And what do you get back? Yes, but the market is just awful right now. Every single suggestion gets a yes, but. It's so frustrating. It feels like you're just spinning your wheels going absolutely nowhere. And here's the thing, you are. Because the conversation you think you're having, the one about solving a problem, is not the conversation that's actually happening. There's something else going on under the surface, a kind of secret script. So what is it? This whole frustrating back and forth is the perfect example of a psychological game that's hiding in plain sight. And to figure it out, we're going to need a new way of looking at things.
And that's where transactional analysis comes in. Berne's big idea was that all our communication can be broken down into these little exchanges or transactions that happen between different parts of our personality. He called these our ego states. And once you understand them, you start to see the real motivations behind what people say.
Okay, so at the very core of this theory are three totally distinct ego states. You can think of them as your three inner voices that we're all switching between, all the time. First up, you've got the parent. This is that voice in your head that sounds a lot like your own parents. It's full of all the rules, the shoulds and shouldn'ts we picked up growing up. Then there's the adult. This is your rational, logical side, like a computer processing data without emotion. And finally, you have the child. Now, this isn't about being childish. It's the part of you that holds all your feelings, your creativity, your spontaneity, your gut instincts.
Now here's the key. These aren't just personality types. In any given conversation at any given moment, you are speaking from one of these three states, your parent, your adult, or your child. And of course, so is the person you're talking to. And that is where things get really interesting.
So how do these ego states actually interact? Berne called these little back and forths transactions. And whether they line up or not basically determines if a conversation is going to go well or if it's going to crash and burn.
When things are going smoothly, the ego states are complementary. Think of them as parallel lines. One person's adult asks a simple, factual question. Do you know where my cufflinks are? The other person's adult gives a factual answer. They're on the desk. Easy. But arguments happen when those transactions get crossed. The adult asks, where are my cufflinks? But the other person responds from their hurt child state, you always blame me for everything. The lines cross. Communication just stops. Okay, so that explains a simple fight, but it still doesn't explain our frustrating yes but conversation from the beginning, does it? For that, we have to look at something Berne called ulterior transactions. These are conversations where what we're saying on the surface is totally different from the secret psychological message we're sending underneath.
And these ulterior transactions, these conversations with a hidden agenda, that is the basis for what Berne famously called games. And trust me, these aren't the fun kind. They're these deeply ingrained, predictable patterns of behavior that always end with a psychological payoff.
So what makes something a game? Well, Burns said it's a repeating pattern of interactions that seems totally normal on the outside, but it's got a hidden motive. It unfolds in a predictable way and always ends with a specific psychological reward for the people playing. It's basically a series of moves with a trap or a gimmick. So let's go back to that mystery conversation from the start. That whole thing wasn't about problem solving at all. It was a classic example of a game. In fact, Berne called it the most common game in the world. Why don't you? Yes, but. And here's the twist. The person complaining isn't actually looking for a solution. See, on a social level, it looks like one adult asking another adult for help. But on a deeper, psychological level, it's a child looking for something completely different. The secret goal is to shoot down every single suggestion to prove that their problem is unsolvable. And why? To reassure their inner child that they don't have to take the scary risk of actually trying to fix things.
Right. So if these games are so draining and unproductive, why on earth do we play them? What's in it for us? Well, it all comes down to that psychological payoff. And Berne identified dozens of these things, all with these brilliantly vivid names. You've got Kick Me, where someone basically walks around with a sign on their back, provoking people into rejecting them just to prove they're a victim. Or If It Weren't For You, where someone blames their partner for holding them back from doing something they're secretly terrified of. There's even Now I've Got You, You Son of a Bitch, played by someone who's just waiting for you to mess up so they can pounce.
So why do we keep getting sucked into these things? According to Berne, it's because playing games gives us 6 main advantages, or payoffs, that are just too powerful to resist. Let's break them down.
Games help keep us feeling stable, and they let us avoid stuff that scares us, like, true intimacy. They give us easy scripts to follow so we don't have to deal with awkward silences. They also provide what Berne called strokes, which is really just any kind of attention, because even negative attention feels better than being ignored. But maybe most importantly, games confirm our deepest beliefs about ourselves and the world. Beliefs like, I'm helpless, or you just can't trust people.
So, if our lives are just filled with all these hidden games, is there any hope? Can we get out of them? For Berne, the answer was a definite yes. And the first step is just realizing that you're playing.
He put it so perfectly himself with this quote. All of the small talk, the pastimes, and especially the games, they're just what we do instead of having real, honest, authentic connections with each other. They're basically placeholders for the real deal.
The ultimate goal of all this, then, is to become game-free. It means we have to drop the scripts, let go of the hidden motives and the predictable payoffs, and actually engage with people from a place of genuine awareness. It's about moving from all that structured drama to the real living of intimacy.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty challenging question. Because once you learn to see these games, you start seeing them everywhere. At work, with your family, and yeah, especially in yourself. So take an honest look at the patterns in your own life. What games are you playing?